Welcome back to the show. I'm here today and excited to talk to you about ClimaGuard. I'm here with the CEO, with Rahel Abraham. She used her engineering skills to create ClimaGuard so that no one would have to go through a climate challenge and loss like she did. ClimaGuard is an innovative company that has created an ultra extreme weather protection system for vehicles and other valuable assets. That weather protection includes things like flood, rain, snow, UV, dust storms. We got those ash storms now in New York, and it's used to help protect with a temporary protective enclosure. So Rahel, glad you're here.
Thank
you. Got to start with the story that inspired this all.
Oh gosh, it's a longer short version. I don't know, but it started in 2017 from Hurricane Harvey, but it did not necessarily get born right away. It was a series of events that happened in between. So it happened in 2017 where my neighbors and I lived in a condominium. We're surrounded by a body of water. So it wasn't like a situation where we could easily evacuate because the lowest part of the ground is the street and it comes up towards residential areas. And so we were all trying to do our best to move our cars as close to the building and also have people who live on the first floor move up to higher ground. And there we experienced about 3 feet of water. Mm-hmm. So everything was, damaged on the first floor, including our vehicles. And it wasn't just that, it was also, losing things such as like ways of making income. Mm-hmm. I had a neighbor who I was close to. She was an artist. And so a lot of her canvas work was destroyed. I had a lot of retired people around who lived there, and they lost a lot of, the sentimental valuables. I know someone who couldn't get to work anymore driving, didn't have a car to drive. And so that was a job loss for him. Mm-hmm. And, being in Houston, not having your car is not just a luxury, it's a necessity to rebuild. And so after, being in water for a couple of days, but it was much more than that when it comes to the rebuild. And that awareness was very eye-opening for me. And having to go back and forth with your insurance, knowing that, if you want to buy a new car, you're going to buy at asking value because everyone's asking for a new car. Mm-hmm. And if you want a used car, you might be in a position where you are getting a car that's been compromised. Mm-hmm. My boyfriend at the time, he ended up getting a flooded used car, and his car started smoking on the middle of the road between Houston and Austin trying to pick up his cousin. So we had to get a tow truck for $500. So, I mean, like there was always... There's so many other in between moments that really are burdensome for people, especially if you're depending on yourself, and we come together as a community. But it was traumatic, and then after that we had Irma and Maria that year, and so just seeing the devastation and being able to like reflect on just like what people are going through, knowing that they have to depend on systems that may or may not pan out for them, but there's no way to prevent it in advance. I wanted to provide a solution, an option for people to have that type of resource that they're, within reach for themselves. So that was the reason why I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's always great to see people come and talk about something that personally impacted them, and then build a solution out of that. So how did the idea then develop?
My best friend at the time, we were talking about it, we're like, there needs to be some type of like cover or something to where when we evacuate, like Jason was talking about before, you don't come back to nothing, like we need to find a barrier of some sort. And we couldn't find anything. Like we tried, because I was going to travel and I knew this could happen again. It's hurricane season is like 6 months. And peak season is August to November pretty much. So, when you're getting hit in August, there's a good chance you can get hit again. A lot of times could just be from heavy rain. So when I wanted to find a way to create a solution, I couldn't find one. That's when I realized like, okay, well, I'm capable of being able to create one as a chemical engineer. I understand material science. I understand, conceptual design. And so that's pretty much how it came about. And I wanted to make it to where it was lightweight enough for a single person to set up because I live by myself. It was reusable. And it was fast to set up. The design had to be simple because you don't have much time when you're, in a position of emergency. So those are like, I thought about like the needs and then try to design around that. And that's how I came up with that.
So tell us what it is in more detail.
So it's a polyethylene material. It's a customized one. So it's one where I had to ensure it could handle different weather, temperature climates, because, if you're storing it in your garage, it can be exposed to freeze all the way up to like extreme heat. So you want it to be able to be durable during those seasonal changes. And so this material itself, it's an enclosure where you lay it flat on the floor when you open it up, and you drive your vehicle, or you put your belongings from your home into the middle bottom half opening. And then you put a top flap over and you zip it closed. And so the sealed portion of it is in like the first 3 feet or so of the bottom half. And that barrier creates allows for that surface area to where it becomes buoyant in water because there's no water to be able to penetrate. So then your car will end up floating like a boat, essentially. Because, at first when you see a car floating in water, it kind of at first gets picked up, right? That's what happens when you hydroplane. And then water seeps in, and then you get pulled back, anchored down, and that's when you get trapped. So it creates that barrier where, a lot of times, not necessarily close to the coast, but where there's rising waters, your belongings will lift up with it, and then it'll come back down, or just create that seal around it. And
it's like a balloon.
A balloon or a Ziploc bag in a sense, Yeah. So there's been so many different types of references. I call it like a 360 car cover. Typically car covers are top only, but it's like bottom and top.
Okay.
So, it's used for different, other issues that we found out along the way from our customers. And people have used it for like rodent protection and things like that, during the winter.
Do you have different sizes that you sell?
We do. We have a compact, which is for a compact, or a small, which is for a compact car. And then we have a sedan size, which is like, like a full size sedan, say like a Camry or something like that, or like maybe a crossover.
Right.
And then we have a large, which is a mid-size SUV. So it can fit like a Jeep or a van. We try to keep it to vehicles that we thought were low to the ground.
Yeah.
And then also we want to just be expansive enough to where if you wanted to throw your whole living room set in there and leave, you could do that too. So, and it comes in a duffel bag. It's very compressible. You just have to kind of roll it, into the duffel bag, and then it's about 20 pounds. And like I said, it's reusable too. So you can use it, depending on whatever weather events happen during the year.
So then how did you go about marketing it and putting it out in the market and getting people to buy it?
This company was born in Houston, and it was definitely supported in Houston. So before we even had a product, and we were in the prototype phase, because the design was one thing, but then having to test the materials and finding the right manufacturers, which, I ended up going to an outdoor manufacturer company. It took about almost a year, like 9 months or so. And so in the meantime, I was still building up the company brand and just kind of figuring out what is our signature. And we were reached out to by various news, I guess we call it, news media. Yeah. And people would reach out saying like, hey, you have a solution. Like, you're coming to Houston. Let's talk about it. And so, Houston Chronicle even did a 3-page spread on us. Fox 26 was the first one that did a little showcase with our prototype. So we've gotten a lot of support from people who are truly looking for solutions or wanting to share this story based on, them knowing that there's people out there who might need this. I think that's what really was the key for us, is that we didn't really have to spend so much on PR. We got a lot of just press, and then people just started reprinting the story. We were on Yahoo, MSN, it's been really organic, honestly. And then we've put out blogs as well. So we get a lot of support through people searching for alternative solutions.
So what has growth been like then since you started?
It's been pretty good. I will say we do a lot of market testing when it comes to how do we reach our right customers. But we doubled in our sales so we came out end of 2020. We came out in a really good boom because there was a hurricane scare at the time. So we did pretty well. Like day one, we made 10,000 in sales or something. So we were the momentum was starting off pretty good for us not even being out there yet. And then 2021, that's when we started trying to do the advertising portion of it. And we were building up, but we still were doing a lot of data testing. And so certain things were hits and what were not. And then once we started figuring out, what our formula was, and the fact that, just how to reach out to the communities that are aligned with what we're offering, we did really well in 2022, to a point where we sold out prior to being able to complete the year.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, it's something that I try to, so I purchased this product in bulk. Like I make bulks at a time, material, because I said the material is custom made. So you have to make X amount, about 5 tons at a time. And so,
just 5 tons.
Yeah. So, I underestimated, right? Because I'm going based on the growth of 2021. I didn't realize 2022 would be at a setback like that. And so not a setback, but we'd be under, we'd have,
you would have
under
so much
inventory.
demand.
Yes. And so, this year we're trying to do better, and we're increasing the amount of medium and larges, because actually there's a lot more medium and larges that were ordered than we expected.
Right.
And so hopefully this year we'll make up for it. But yeah, we've been thinned out, and so we're trying again. We're still new. We're still like figuring out what is that right inventory to keep on hand, and when to restock, so that it don't have that gap again.
Yeah.
Who do you think is or it seems like who your target audience is? I would just assume it's people with Corvettes, but I don't actually know.
Oh gosh, there are some Corvette owners. Yes, there are. Like one of my first customers, he's a retired couple. He's great. He lives in Deer Park area. And they've been flooded a few times because they're near a retention pond of some sort. And so they have tile floors, and they've kind of done everything else to really make their place flood resistant or flood damage resistant, but not their cars. So he had a Cadillac and a Corvette, and he's like, yeah. So every time he puts it on, he sends me pictures, which I really appreciate. But they're an older couple. But we've had people who've used it for different reasons. Like I said, they used it for patio furniture. They've used it for rodent protection. I've used it for, a lot of people in Galveston have used it for their golf carts, because there's a lot of golf cart communities there. And those golf carts are a few $1,000s, they've told me.
I'm sure if they're parked outside, they will be picked up and they will be gone.
Yes, exactly. And so we have an anchoring mechanism as well with our design. So they use it for their golf carts because they can't evacuate with that. And what else? But a lot of cars, a lot of people, a lot of people want to use it as a temporary. I had someone who purchased it for a car that they were rebuilding, and so they just wanted something to protect it in between because the dust. We've had some international orders too from people, in Australia, because they also have hurricane season the opposite time of the year as us, because in the southern hemisphere. And they've used it for different reasons. So, I mean, we're learning, what else could add value for our customers, and what could be changed in order to add more value to those who are looking for something more specific.
Yeah. Yeah, because one of the things I'm thinking about is that this is probably something that sells a lot when you have a hurricane coming. Suppose,
you're right.
There's a warning for a category 4 hurricane, and everyone runs and wants to buy something like this. So how would you accommodate to have that kind of supply available, especially during hurricane season, where suddenly everyone wants to buy this?
So people in Houston have an advantage because we warehouse in Houston. So those, we've done same day pickups for extreme situations. Otherwise, like in Florida, where we've had some issues, like last year, there was the hurricane. Typically with these weather or pending storms, we have a week notice. You see them brewing in,
exactly. Yeah.
In the ocean. And so that's when we start getting, we're able to accommodate. Typically our turnaround time is about 2 days on delivery. So we also, we try to make sure that we within, if they order it before 3 or 4 o'clock, we'll ship it out that same day. So I have a fulfillment company over in the burbs in Stafford that works with us. So, and they understand. And so, we try our best to accommodate within a couple of days, depending on if there's any, it's not any weather issues in between at that time, but that's the best we could do right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm in awe of is like, it seems like you know and have done everything at ClimaGuard. And would you ever imagine that? I guess what are some surprising skills you had to pick up in your journey?
So many, because I am a corporate engineer.
Yeah.
I'm not, I did not learn business. So I had to look for mentors like yourself, Nada, and I had to really allow myself to have setbacks. I mean, like I said, our margin in 2021 wasn't that great. It was probably about 6% or so, because we were testing out a lot, and then we got closer to 30% 2022 because we did better. But so I had to learn about, one, I traveled to different countries to looking for a manufacturer. I ended up finding one to make our material for a cost that we could sell it at in China. And, it would have been, the cost to make the same material would have cost close to $600 in the US, so that was one, is just like being realistic to like the whole import export journey, and then pricing it, the price model as well. And then also understanding how to communicate to people. This is something where I talked about buoyancy. Does everyone understand the concept of buoyancy? No, not so much, right? So I had to understand I had to learn how to convey value and the benefits to people who, may not understand it right away when looking at this product. And so that was, something I had to learn. Even being from the behind the scenes to the front, like doing a podcast. I mean, that wasn't something that I was expecting to be part of the business model, but I have to in order to put this company out there for people to know. But, I am that typical engineer where I'm like, I kind of want to be avoidant and just more so just get the work done. But that's not what's going to help. That is more of a personal choice. It's not for the benefit of the company. So I have to step outside of that comfort zone. So, I mean, there's a lot that I had to learn. But I tell people all the time, like, having a business there's so much more reward outside of the monetary gain, because it makes you realize how resourceful you are. The community around you, like the network that I built, I would have never thought was possible. Like having business partners overseas and, meeting someone like yourself and understanding the other types of ways that you could have impact. It just opens up your eyes and your mind so much more. And, understanding accounting. I mean, there's so many. So there's a list of benefits, and you could write a book about it as you've done. So, building a team and being, and being able to give direction, and all that. It's just, it's been very rewarding and also humbling too.
Tell us a little bit about the humbling. Yeah.
Sometimes, okay, I'll say this, like there's been with the warehouse and the fulfillment, you can make partnerships with people where you're like, okay, you want things to be fulfilled a certain time, and then maybe the other partner does not do their part. Or for example, I started during the pandemic, as you know, right? So we had shipment coming in expected to arrive beginning of 2020. We didn't get our shipment till the fall because there were so many cargo that was stuck at the port during the pandemic, right? So that was unexpected delay in loss and preparations. And we're like, what else can we do to kind of help build that momentum still? And then what else? I mean, even dealing with customer engagement. We want to make sure customers are happy, and so we had to make sure they understood use cases. And I'm not here to make people upset, but when someone is upset or they feel certain types of way about a lack of meeting of expectations, it does knock you, because at the end of the day, you're here to provide a service of support. And so you have to understand, again, this is critical. What do you call it? Constructive criticism in a sense of Rahel, there's better ways for you to communicate so that people are not feeling, so confused on setup and how to use and things of that sort. So there's been times where I feel like I'm doing well, and then, something like a hiccup happens that's maybe out of my control or just not really seen due to my ignorance of starting a business for the first time, and just having to regroup and just try it again.
Yeah.
So
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, like I think from what you're saying, you really demonstrate a lot of resilience. And I'm always curious to know, like, where does that come from?
I'll tell you, and I've said this before, so many different things, but one of the reasons why I felt I was like, I could do this business was because I knew of that Sarah Blakely story of Spanx and how she just like was, I'm going to make hosiery and go to these like, big manufacturers and sell them a vision. And that's exactly what I did. I sold them a vision. And so I just, there's a lot of faith that comes behind it too. But I realized, those who make it are those who just don't quit. And if you really believe in what you're doing and like the passion's there, then it carries you through. If I thought if it was just like a quick win, like where I can just like, make some residual income and it was just like, it was all about the financial gain, I probably wouldn't be as resilient. But because I had a mission behind what I was doing and that was more than just for me, I was able to push through and, make those necessary sacrifices to say like, hey, every year I delay this product is another hurricane season where I may not, I'm not able to help one person save some sentimental or valuable belonging to them. So that in itself just kept on driving me. Like every time I heard a hurricane coming, I'm like, get it together. We got to figure it out, because that way people have an option. And there's multiple reasons of why I push through. But yeah.
Yeah. So I think we talked about before, you self-funded this, and like you took the time and have made the decision not to bring in outside investors, which has pros and cons. And I think most of the folks we've had on the show are building kind of venture scale businesses. But like it's working for you, not bringing in outside partners. So tell us about like that thought process.
So it's a slower process. I'll say that, when you have outside funding, you're able to have resources right away and you're able to, make mistakes fast, learn fast, which is a model. But I sometimes feel like it's a model that is set on certain times where we're at. Like, right now it's starting to be thinned out, right? And so if you need to like continue on funding a project that's depending on like different, stages of funding, it puts you in a position of vulnerability. And I wanted to have more security than that. I wanted to be able to have a model that truly I believe would work long term to scale. And the way we work is that, the money that we make, we reinvest. Granted, now I feel closer to being open to raising than I would before because I have that data behind us, to where I'm like, hey, now we can pour into it knowing that it will grow. But at the time, I didn't want all of that external pressure and also, kind of misdirect the intentions of this business. And so I just didn't see it as something that would help me run this business better. I think at the moment we needed to focus on like making sure the design was right, and then just kind of figuring out how do we speak to at least our community in Houston, and then reach out to other coastal regions. So that model was enough to where I was able to do it on my own. I had money saved up. There was also a lot of grants that, I got a grant from different businesses that I've worked in or aligned myself with, within Houston, or even some e-commerce grants as well. And so, it wasn't all me, but it was, there was other ways for us to be able to get income enough to start this business as a bootstrap business.
Yeah. And I think you're such a great role model for other companies that you can do it this way and get it to a level that now you're like, you know what, I can bring in other investors and I have data to show where I am. Because a lot of times, a lot of startups that we see get just consumed by raising before they have the product, before they've proven anything to the market. So that's definitely very impressive. Another thing you mentioned earlier when we were talking was that, you're pretty much running this business on your own. You have partnerships, so you focus on partnerships. You have a very lean model.
Yes.
But you said you also have put some really good processes in place. So I would love to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a very technology heavy life, right? So you can do so much from your phone. You can do so much from a computer. The people who work on my site or, managing a lot of what's happening, because we're mostly e-commerce business, who manage a lot of the activities online, they work remotely. And so we just have different platforms that we use to kind of track our metrics. We meet weekly. And then on top of it, like I said, knowing that like my fulfillment company, they have their own platform. So they'll let us know when inventory is low, when they need restocking. A lot of things that you could do from your home. And so I, just use a lot of different platforms. I mean, I still use Asana. I know some people use it, some people don't. I don't know, but it's like it helped me with to-do lists and reminders all the time. And there's just a lot of resources out there to where you could track your own bookkeeping and like money and what are your margins looking like in real time. There's a lot of resources online so I guess I subscribe more so.
So what do you use for monitoring your financials and things like that?
So I use like the Wave app. I don't know if you heard of the Wave app.
What is that?
It's kind of like what do you call what's the QuickBooks but cheaper.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Importantly.
Yeah. Cheaper.
And on your phone?
You can use it on your phone.
I don't think QuickBooks is on your phone.
Yeah,
okay.
you can
That's
access it from your
That's
phone.
amazing.
Yeah. But it's called the Wave app. You can use it, and so it ties to your different accounts, and then it has this predictive categorizing model, and you just kind of train it, and then over time it tracks it, and then my team we would model that onto a Google sheet and just making sure that our numbers make sense. And then there's just different apps you could use within Shopify, Amazon. Where they pull in data to make sure your inventory is not lost. And so if they need to pay you back money, they'll find the money, and then usually Amazon will send you money back. And so so there's just different platforms we've used just based on you kind of have to go through the model of like, where is there a problem, and then is there a solution for it? Like, do you want you can outsource a person if it needs to be that like much handheld, but is there already a solution out there that we just need to like add to our toolbox as we're we're seeing a recurring issue. So we kind of just added, and then we just wanted to make sure that we're being efficient as possible with our time. So, doing things manually is not going to be something that is going to be worth any of our time. If that's the case, then we might as well outsource it. But if it's a situation where we know there's a platform that allows us to just easily just kind of like screen, we'll just add it to the toolbox.
Yeah. So. I think this is like the nuance of like an ongoing business in some ways. Like you realize like I need to focus on building the business or growing the business, and anything operational that I can outsource, like fulfillment, someone is good at that. Let them do that. We don't have to do everything inside. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that because like you kind of want to be perfect almost.
Yeah.
But you like that desire to be perfect holds you back, right?
It does. I mean, that's how it was also when I was as an engineer. Like that's basically what we have to do. We have to be perfect because you're designing and you want to meet expectations. But as a business, perfection is not going to be the way to win. You have to let things go. Yeah. You can be a part of it in the very beginning stages, so what the needs are and understanding like the system, as like a whole. But like, you want to let that go. And like I said, I've gone through a couple of different fulfillment companies before I got the one that I have now. And they communicate very well. I mean, it's personalized at this point. Like we chat on WhatsApp if we need to, and so but they also have a platform where I can track everything. And then they invoice me once a month at the end, so I know exactly what, like, it's itemized for me. So it's just one of those, you have to go through the process before you get the right fit, even with looking for the right manufacturer, because that was a journey. I went through I did prototypes about 8 or 9 different companies before I found the right one. Even at one point I squashed all of them. Like I just wiped them all clean. I was like, we need to start from scratch. And then I found the one that I'm working with now, like a couple months later. So it was a very discouraging journey to like build up to where you're like, none of them work. And then you're like, oh wait, I found someone through someone else. You just have to kind of go through it in order to be able to find out how to do it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a great lesson there, because very often people would give up right after
Mhm.
you get to that point where you were like, okay, all 8 of these manufacturers don't work.
Mhm.
But you kept on going because that's 8 out of so many more million that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find one that works. And the same with the fulfillment people that you use, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's all about testing and trying and see what works. It's not, you're not always going to hit the target.
Yeah, you can't just check it off the list like, oh, got it, next
Mhm.
step.
Mhm.
You know, you have to revisit a lot of
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But it seems like you have,
No,
yeah, you have a lot of basics now in place. So I'm just curious, what's next? What's your vision now for next year, next couple of years?
So we have a couple of samples that we are going to experiment with in adding to our, I guess, our portfolio.
Mhm.
You know, we've learned that there's a good amount of people who are into winter protection.
Hmm.
So we want to add some elements that could protect them in a very efficient way from ice
Mhm.
issues as they're parking their car.
Mhm.
And then there's
Protect the plants.
yeah, you know, exactly. And then
Yeah.
we also we're going to experiment with another like more portable sealed water sealed bag, you know, like a dry bag.
Mhm.
If for people to add that as well to their to go emergency kit.
Yep.
You know, this is an emergency protective tool, so we want to kind of stay in that family of like what other things can we offer, and what resonates with our customers who are looking for, you know, solutions that are going to help them combat some of these extreme climate conditions. So that's what we're working on now. Now that we kind of, you know, we've solidified more of how we roll out a new product, and so we're going to try to see if that works out for a different one. So that's what we're working on right now.
I want to side rail. Do you guys have go bags? Because when I got a house, I had I have a waterproof go bag in case I need to like leave when there's a hurricane
so
emergency.
that's gonna be the other bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
No,
have
I
one?
don't. I don't.
Okay.
Have one. Yeah,
Now that you're here again,
yeah, you need to get one.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like we sat down for a weekend and we're like, what do we need if we need to like leave the house for a week, so that if we make that decision to evacuate, right, like we'll be ready.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so it's already like pre-packed with
It's
everything that you need.
it sits in
Yeah.
the
you can
pantry.
add to it yourself.
There's like I think we have like 5 days of canned food in it. You gotta every year you gotta go back and replace it. But it's like it was expensive to find a waterproof bag that like was big enough and like had all the things.
Yeah, so
And,
hopefully ours won't be as expensive as that one. That's my goal too, is someone sourcing. It's like making sure I can get the best deal possible. But yeah, that's one of the products that we're going to come out with, so people have an alternative to when they're evacuating. How do they preserve what they're carrying with them?
Yeah,
because you know, people have lost their birth certificates, and you know, a lot of these paper type of documentations that are necessary coming back to. So we want to find a way for people to protect some of their essential documentation as well. So, and having a to-go bag that's waterproof, it's the way to do it.
Yeah. Now not as like, what if I brought myself back
Because
to?
you got to think about it. You know, you live in a flood-prone city, and like 25%
Yeah.
of the areas in Houston, or most areas that flood, are not considered flood zones. It's very hard to designate areas as flood zones. There's a lot of data that is not available to us yet.
Yeah, and it keeps on changing, right? Every flood, you discover new areas.
Yeah, because there's so much development happening, right? So
I think what clicked it for me is like on 290 when you drive out, I think it has like the signs like evacuation route, and like you can use these lanes if there's an evacuation. I'm like, oh, someone thought we needed this, right? And that's that kind of planning that you're glad you have it when there's emergency.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want to be scrambling.
Yeah.
You usually learn like the year after.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's interesting the story you told earlier of this older couple, right? Like that house been flooded so many times, people just still stay there.
Most people don't move. Well, most people don't move because like your community is there, your job, your family. You know, no one wants to leave their kids. You know, my parents are not going to leave. I live here. My sister lives here.
Yeah.
And so, giving people the expectation of saying, why don't you just pack up and leave? Like, no one wants to leave their home.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be pushed out through like war or like, you know, complete like everyone's, you know, completely gone from your life for you to want to like leave and start new. But when you're rooted, you want to stay close to your community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big source of your happiness.
Yeah.
That is true.
And Houston's easy living, right? Like in all the other ways, aside from the weird heat wave we have this week.
Gosh,
Mhm.
it is horrible.
Yeah.
Like it feels like an oven outside.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like there's work, there's
Yeah.
a place to live. Like it's easy if you have kids,
Mhm.
right? And so
Mhm.
Yeah,
it's
people are nice.
Yeah, people are nice.
Yeah.
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 So most of your business then I imagine comes from Houston, but there are other areas.
Actually,
also
a
in the
lot come from
US?
the East Coast.
East Coast. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the hurricanes and
Yeah, exactly.
winter
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
happen in the East Coast. So East Coast to Florida
Okay.
and then some in Houston.
Okay.
When we first started out, yes, we were more aware. People knew us more in Houston, but it's more so now on the East Coast, I would say.
Yeah. I could see
Okay.
Florida.
Yeah,
But
Florida.
so
Mm.
like I don't know if you noticed last year, but some of these hurricanes went to crazy places.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's something in I think I was reading that the weather
Yeah.
patterns are
Yeah.
changing.
Mhm.
And they're expecting a lot of the hurricanes to go much further north than they ever used to.
exactly.
Like New York, Massachusetts. I think one hit Alaska
Yeah,
last
it was
year.
flooding quite a bit last
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
in New York.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I expect the demand will increase in the sense that people have to think about it now.
Mm-hmm.
Where they
Right,
did
yeah.
like geographically. They
Yeah,
didn't
and they
have
don't
to
really
before.
have many places to park their cars in
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
areas. It's very condensed cities, and so they have limited alternatives. You know, you could definitely be stuck on a highway there.
Mm.
So that's a lot of the reasons why they've reached out and they've asked to buy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're learning just as much as you are, but
Yeah.
these weather patterns do
Yeah.
affect it.
There was an article in the New York Times about how, the Earth is rotating around an axis,
Mhm.
and that's
Shifted.
that's shifted.
Mhm.
It's going more east. Usually it's been going a bit more south.
Mm.
Mhm.
And they say it's because of human activity,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because of us
Water.
draining out the water aquifers,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and probably something else. I don't
Yeah.
remember what it was. Yeah, but the glaciers melting,
Mhm.
right? It causes so all these shifts that are kind of seem minor, but they can have major consequences in terms of the weather patterns.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Well, it's also like the numbers are so big. It's just like hard to even like
It's
put your
hard.
mind around like what is an aquifer being depleted even.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
Like I said,
Yeah.
most people don't realize and
Yeah.
don't think about these things, but there are trends that show, the cost of flood damage is increasing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's a lot of times regional, but these are $billion problems, and the amount of homes that are being developed in these areas. You hear a lot of people moving to Texas, people are moving to Florida. Like the development of these areas are going to only increase the chances of flooding spreading in those
Right.
communities. And you don't coming from out of town as a an implant, you're not realizing these other consequences that happen because you're like, oh, there's so many benefits to moving these regions because of the lifestyle. But there's like you should also come prepared just because there's going to be all risks associated living in these areas and developing these areas. And so, but yeah, there's so many factors, and it's unfortunate, but people have to a lot of times go through an event for them to kind of wake up and be like, oh, that near miss could have easily been me,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, this world is changing, but Mother Nature is consistently showing up.
Mm.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Houston. So
Okay.
obviously you were here in Houston before your business, and you've decided to stay.
Mhm.
Were you ever contemplating building it anywhere else?
No, because I mean, this is where people needed it. This is the community that I want to support and help, that I'm part of.
Mhm.
So nowhere else. And conveniently, we're in the center of the U.S. So I could easily ship either direction. But no, it was for Houston,
Yeah.
and then everyone else benefited on top of it. But it was for Houston.
Did you find you had the resources you need in Houston to help you?
No, I had to go elsewhere, honestly, just because Houston is a medical and oil and gas space, but when it comes to e-commerce, like that could be anywhere. A lot of times in California, right? So when I networked with people, who were in other states a lot of times. My cousin was the one, and one of my mentors was the one that told me, like, you should definitely explore China, because I was trying to keep everything local. Like he's like, no, you should definitely explore. He's was a person who did a lot of sales for JCPenney's and things like that. So he understood like trade and so I had to open my mind up to learning from other places and people from different places. But I would say Houston, was a place where I had like a lot of support, as far as the encouragement, because people here are, as you know, like we're very community focused. And so the support was here, but as far as like the knowledge base that I was seeking, and I did have to go and reach outside of Houston for that.
Yeah. Did you find like mentors and programs here?
Yeah, when I first started, I mean, there's SCORE. I know. I definitely went to SCORE because I was like, how do you, create a business plan? How do you, the basics, right? Like, how do I make sure that this spreadsheet of like cost tracking makes sense, right?
Nuts and bolts of building a business.
Lee, the amount of we call it like formulas I had put together. Thank God I know how to do Excel, but like for somebody else, I could definitely be overwhelming. But just kind of forecasting all that. And so I did reach out to them, and then I also was part of a program called Div Inc. And
Love
so
that.
so I was I think their third cohort, and I've never been an accelerator before, and so that was amazing because I was in Austin for a few months.
Tell us about Div Inc's Accelerator, because I never, I did like a Techstars version, but I don't know how they're different.
So it was in 2019. So it was right before, I came back to, ready to like get ready to launch, right? So I wanted to be part of it. My friend told me about this program, and it was for those who are, might identify as a minority, women and people of color. And so I wanted to be in a space where I felt comfortable, because in Austin, it's like, there's few of us, right? And I went to college at UT, by the way. So coming to Austin was, also nostalgic. But I just was so new to the whole startup space. It was a really good way to just feel welcomed and just safe in doing and entering that startup space. People, a lot of my colleagues or people in the cohort were more so in like the SaaS and like the tech, but in overall, like as far as, building your team and just knowing how to understand leadership and like, networking, very similar. And so I think for me, just helping my mind shift from being an employee engineer to like, I'm a business owner. I'm someone who has vision. How do I carry out this vision so that I'm not tied up in the business, but I'm working, on the business. Those types of environmental influences really help me do what you were talking about before. Like, how do you like let go? Yeah. I had to learn to let go, because me holding on is me crippling the business. And so, that's what Div Inc helped me with, really. And then after that, I just needed a break because it was just super intense.
They are intense.
They're super intense. And I'm like, okay, where am I in this business? And then I was like, let me just launch first, and then I can maybe go back to some other program afterwards. But let me get to another stage before I keep on doing one. Some people do it back to back to back, right? But I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Good.
A lot of stretching.
Yeah. And so Div Inc was in Austin. I think they the Ion brought them to Houston.
They came here.
It's a great resource here in the ecosystem.
Actually, I think today they have
an event,
clean tech demo day.
Oh, the demo day! I probably got an email about it.
Yeah,
it's going to be in the evening.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Bringing people together.
Yeah.
And for those on the air, this would be in June. So
it's already passed. June. Yeah, it's already passed for you guys.
Sorry.
But watch out and sign up for their newsletter, so you know when the next one is.
So it sounds like you had to go outside of Houston in some ways for some resources. What are some gaps where you wish it was just here? And obviously Div Inc is here now. So
exactly, now they're here. But back then in 2019 they weren't. They didn't have the Ion in 2019, right? So now there's like the network. I mean, you came after, right? So it's like the network is now established in Houston, but at first it wasn't so much. And a lot of those activities were happening in Austin, what's called Silicon Hills, right? Yeah. So like I knew I had to go to Austin for it. But I feel a lot of things that I was looking for outside of Houston, I can now find in Houston. And like this whole clean tech, initiative and drive, I love it. Like my background is chemical engineering, but also environmental engineering. So I'm really excited about being able to be exposed to this new ecosystem that has cultivated over the past couple of years in Houston.
Yeah. All right. So we've done the work. We're done. That's all I'm hearing. Like, you don't need to build anymore.
No, keep building. Right. We need more. We need to attract more people. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because we have the resources. We just need to know how to build those systems to really make use of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So I guess we're starting to wind down just in terms of time.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about where you want to go next. Is there anything that our audience can do for you other than tell all their friends about it?
Gosh, that's pretty much it. Word of mouth is gold. Yeah, I mean, that's great to share this solution, because I think a lot of people don't have it. It doesn't naturally come to mind, right? You think about, let me look at my insurance coverage. You're not thinking about, is there some, a resource out there? I know, like whenever there is a hurricane warning or a flood warning in your area, you can get reimbursed up to $1,000 when it comes to you getting preventative equipment. So the sandbags.
Wait. Say that again. So there's a program here in Houston?
No, it's if you have flood insurance.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you have flood insurance. So with FEMA, when you have that flood insurance part of your plan, because if you live in a flood zone, you do have to have flood insurance.
Yep.
If you're a homeowner. And so if you go look through your policy, you can get reimbursed up to $1,000 when it comes when you purchase flood prevention equipment during a pending weather event. So when you get like plywood or sandbags or tarp of some sort to cover your belongings, because for every dollar you spend in preventions, like saves the government about $11 in recovery.
Oh, wow.
So prevention is key. I mean, even like with health, right? It's like they say the same thing. You want a long list of medical bills, or do you want to take care of your body now? Same thing with your property. So there are resources out there. I think people are just not aware of them because they, we're new and we're just trying to get enough to get to the next thing. But yeah, so there's ways that if you're in a situation like that, you may be able to get reimbursed. And then also, I just want to just emphasize that, like I said before, 25% of areas that flood are not considered flood zones. So don't think that you are void of this problem. If you live in an area that is a coastal city, it could happen to anyone. So, stay safe.
Yep.
Where can people buy the product?
ClimaGuard.co, C-O. And you can find us there. And you can send us, we have a little chat box there if you want to, or email us. Well, we're very accessible.
Yeah.
So please do reach out.
Good.
Yeah.
And can people find you on LinkedIn?
Of course, they can find me on LinkedIn. We have Instagram, Facebook, all the social media handles.
Yeah. I'm curious, how much do people buy on Instagram?
On Instagram, no, we don't really advertise on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we're really heavy on the SEO.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Do you have any parting thoughts before we wrap?
Not any parting thoughts. I just appreciate Houston. Thank you for always reaching out, Jason, and checking in on me. You're consistent. You've been consistent for a few years.
I admire your work.
I'm very, very grateful for you. Yeah. So thank you. And always inviting me to, events, and you're a really big part of this ecosystem. So thank you for doing your part, coming out of Boston, making Houston your home.
Yeah.
I always tell people, when you live through your first climate event in Houston, that's when you become a Houstonian.
Yeah.
And I had that with Harvey as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Now we're bonded.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.